mean, as I said, I've been relatively optimistic about Ukraine, and I think it's done an enormous number of very positive things over the last 3 years. You can just take a checklist or look at any of these studies, and whatever the field, whether it's the economy, banking, energy, education, the civil service, corruption, rule of law, things, and just go down the list, decentralization, budgets, and so on and so forth. Ukraine has embarked upon enormous changes. Now, the problem is that the vast majority of Ukrainians in Ukraine and the vast majority of people of Ukrainian descent in the United States, Canada, and Europe are of the opinion that c'est propal, it's all lost. It's over and done with. And you can see that today in Ukraine with the demonstrations and the marches and the blockades. The credibility of the government is about 0. The legitimacy is probably about 10. Everybody believes that they're all totally corrupt. Nothing has changed. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Well, Moscow doesn't have to create this narrative. That's the bottom line. Ukrainians have created this narrative. Ukrainians are sustaining this narrative, and Ukrainian Americans and Ukrainian Canadians are to a large degree sustaining and creating this narrative as well. To my mind, all you need to do is look at any number of indices, whether it's Freedom House, whether it's Vox Ukraine, whether it's the local NGOs in Ukraine. You can just measure, you can just see very clearly. And people want Ukraine, especially in the aftermath of the revolution, they want Ukraine to have become Switzerland in the course of 3 weeks. Well, that's just not going to happen. Ukraine will be a crummy place for the foreseeable future, but it's becoming increasingly less crummy as we speak. But that's just not doing the trick. So the result is people are making these claims that it's all over, it's all done with. And obviously, the Russians not being stupid or saying, well, hey, if the Ukrainians believe this, who are we to disagree? And all they need to do then is just point to any number of articles, any number of demonstrations, any number of claims made in the press, made in television and radio to support the view that Ukrainians themselves are persuaded that it's all over. I consistently, I rant and rail against this in public, here in New York and in other places where I've spoken before the community. And I've told people, listen, if you truly believe it's over, then you have to be consistent. If you think it's all over, after several revolutions, all these attempts, it's all over, your claim should be, let's bring back Yanukovych. That's the only way to go. Or better still, just give up the whole game and let's call Putin and make Ukraine into Russia's 89th or 90th province. If it's all over, and then be consistent, then just give it up altogether. Or alternatively, if you don't think it's all over, if you're not willing to give it all up, then stop talking this stupid talk, because you're simply reinforcing the narrative, the Russian narrative, and at the same time simply leading to the further destabilization in Ukraine. Start looking at things objectively, and you'll see that the glass is sometimes half full, sometimes half empty, sometimes it's actually pretty full. It's not even half full, it's pretty full, depending on the sector that you're looking at.